Welcome to Locked In, everyone. Big news for Michigan fans, sad news for Michigan fans. Jim Harbaugh has accepted the position as head coach for the San Diego Chargers. On top of that, he is taking legendary defensive coordinator Jesse Minter with him, along with his son, Jay Harbaugh, who coached safeties and was a special teams coordinator at Michigan. Chance, that's huge news. That's a huge blow. As anyone who's watched Locked In knows, we've been quite big fans of the Michigan defense and the Michigan team overall. Suffice it to say that things are going to be different tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and a lot of people were talking about how much Bama has lost, but you'd have to think this is a big loss coming out of Ann Arbor because that defense is what won them the championship, and I know that might be a bold take, but I think it's the take to say, right there. I'm gonna be very loud about that. Without the defense that they had, which was probably an NFL caliber defense, if we're being realistic, there's no way they do nearly as good all year. So that's a big loss, especially losing Jim and the DC, most likely. You know, I think the big question is what are they returning and who are they retaining? So I think the big question is who's going to be the next head coach?
Yeah, and of course, as with everything, or every situation such as this, there are usually three or four names that get tossed around, some more realistic than others. One of the rumors that we hear, down here in the South is the rumblings that Brian Kelly is interested in the Michigan position. My hot take on that is Kelly has built LSU up into something. I think they have momentum going into the next season. I think that they're probably going to be a top three or four team in the SEC. Just depending on how the cards fall, they might even be one or two. Who knows? So he's really got something built up in LSU, and that is a hotbed for talent. Recruiting is usually really easy in Louisiana in that deep South area. So honestly, I think he would be giving up a lot to go back north, which he's coached most of his career up in the upper Midwest. But I could see it, I guess. But right now, do you think that Kelly makes as much sense as Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator who filled in Harbaugh's absence and won every game he coached in, including the game?
If he wasn't the interim coach for so long this year, almost half the year this year, I'd say there's a slight possibility because the South doesn't really accept Brian Kelly as much as it would be thought that they would, especially after that first press conference. And maybe he wants to go back up north, but I wouldn't try to go back up to that weather if I was him personally. It's a different lifestyle. And Michigan, while they did win a national championship, they won because of elite level coaching, not because of elite level recruiting or talent on the field. I'm sure there's much more talented teams such as Alabama. They never recruit top in college football at Michigan, and it's mainly because of their proximity to talent. If you're in the South, you have a way better chance to recruit them kids in the South that they're popping out 5 stars everywhere, 4 stars everywhere. Same with like Texas and California. You get Michigan and Ohio State up in the north, and they're battling for the same kids, and they're both two very good teams. And there's not as many kids, and there's not as much talent up there, but there is different talent. So it's a big change from the SEC to the North. I just don't know if Brian Kelly makes that jump. I think Sharon Moore probably is the shoe in here for that job. At least it seemed to be.
Well, to me, I want to go back and say, I guess build on what you said about, the talent levels. I think that there are a lot more, it seems to be a lot more five-star talent in the South. But the thing that I think that makes Michigan different, I think it makes Michigan even different from an Ohio State team. They seem far more confident in their ability to develop what they have. And one of the things that I've noticed that Michigan fans have taken real pride in pointing out, in comments, on this channel, is how many of the Michigan players this year had superstar years and were three-star recruits. So clearly, these Michigan kids play with unbelievable heart, and that coaching staff can flat develop talent. And I know that that's not, just all I guess all confined to Harbaugh and Mentor. Obviously, that's going to be a big blow. But I think the kids up there love playing for the coaching staff. I think they got behind Sharon Moore. They love playing for him. I think that there's a lot still there at Michigan that I'm hopeful about. And on top of that, I think that with Kelly coming up, I don't know. I don't know. Kelly's always he strikes me as having a complicated personality, and I would wonder if there would be if people would be more likely to if you'd be more likely to see transfers under a Kelly regime as opposed to a Sharon Moore regime. I think if Sharon Moore takes it, they very likely keep the people they need to keep intact and they keep moving, in the direction. Obviously, it's going to be different. We can't sit here and say it's going to be the same, but I think that they will have much more continuity if Sharon Moore were to have were to get the head coach position. Now, in terms of what they're losing, like because you mentioned, Michigan is losing several players to the draft. Like, who are the names that we think? Obviously, JJ McCarthy is going to hurt. I mean, JJ McCarthy has been a solid quarterback, a good quarterback who fought through, some injury this year, even and still played great throughout the year. Blake Corum, you really can't replace a guy like that. I mean, that's a career great running back at Michigan, at any place he would have been. Hard to replace that. Roman Wilson on the outside, he was a good receiver for Michigan. He's going to be hard to replace. Um, who on defense are we? And not to mention that offensive line. I mean, we have several departures going to be leaving that offensive line. Several were graduate students. A lot of people's eligibility has simply run out, and they'll probably be trying their hand in the draft. What about on the defensive side? Who are some people that you think will be missing out for Michigan?
There's not too many that left on their defense. I think it's mainly just Colson, isn't it? Their running back or their linebacker, number
Linebacker,
25.
linebacker, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there much more besides him?
I think he'll be you've got on this draft list that I'm looking at right now. You have, well, yeah, you do because you have Sanders still, who's going to be leaving,
Yeah,
and I mean, and that's kind of
that's a
like
tough one.
that's
He's their
Corum.
leader.
That's hard, and I mean, and that dude produces so many big plays, so many interceptions, just so much fun to watch. Obviously you can't replace that. He's a big hole,
He's a big
um,
key in their run stop too.
and
He comes up to fill the run a lot.
he does. And like I think with Colson, that was one of the things. I mean, I was so impressed with him out there, in the national championship game with his arm tied up. I mean, there's a lot of toughness in that team, and I think Colson represented a lot of that. He'll be hard to replace, at that linebacker position. Of the remainders, I see Jalen Harrell, Braden McGregor, who was an edge
Their end, yeah,
rusher for them,
he was a good end.
and he was a good rusher, good defensive end. Michael Barrett, I don't think I mentioned him. But now you've got several Drake Nugent, Zach Zenter, several people across that offensive line, Trevor Keegan, who are going to be gone. This list has, and I don't know if this is just because I have not seen myself. It may be true, but they have AJ Barner on this list, and I don't know if he has committed yet to go to the draft. So that might be a new one on me. But that's another one I just see on this list that stands out. He's a good tight end. Really played a key role in a lot of their running game success in the running game. So they have some people who are gone that were true, star players. And and such is the case for every championship team. There's a reason you're a championship team. You have some great players, and usually you've built up to that point. And when they're gone, man, they're gone. So who do we have? Well, what's going to make it an interesting job on offense?
I think the returners at tight end, you got Loveland return. He's a big name coming in. I think he should be a preseason All American, if I'm
Yeah,
correct.
he
And then
should
you
be.
also have Donovan Edwards. That's a big name. And, that's probably the two biggest ones, especially for their offense.
And I have to think that Donovan Edwards. I mean, this is going to be his chance. It seems to me to be the number one man, and he really had some great flashes. One of the things too, I think that stands out about him, I believe he caught 30 passes this past season. I mean, he's a dual threat running back, and having a season to be the man, he's really going to help his draft stock out, I think. And and like you said with Loveland, Colson Loveland, the tight end, I have a really hard time, not seeing him be a number one pick, probably in the 2025 draft, because that guy's an athlete. He's a just a premier receiver. And whenever you watch him, I can't help but think about him playing the tight end position, kind of like a different kind of Gronkowski, because I mean this guy, he is it. And I don't know how many people, I know a lot of people have talked about him, but I don't think a lot of people have talked about him as being like, an absolute shoe in, all American first round draft pick kind of guy. I think he could be that. So that's definitely something, to work with whenever, for the new head coach at Michigan. So, and in terms of like rumors, who other than Kelly, what other names have popped up?
I think the some of the names that popped up were Kansas's coach and K State's coach, because he's the
So
one that
Kansas,
came from South Dakota State when or North Dakota State when they was winning the 4 championships back to back in
was
the
it
FCS.
Kleinman? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Chris Kleinman, I believe. So there's a guy with some championship pedigree coming through. What about the Kansas coach Lance Leopold? He's had a solid run up there at Kansas, probably as good as anybody's had in a while. But I mean, do you really think that those guys are realistic, given that Kelly and Moore are the kind of the lead runners for this position?
I think this is a great way to end it. I think that it's not really who wants to go there. I think you got to, as Michigan, you got to realize who I pick as the next head coach. It could inevitably be the next Alabama, where we lose all of these guys because they don't want to play for Kalen DeBoer or Brian Kelly, who be it, or the K State guy or the Kansas guy. I think the shoe in is Sharon Moore. He's there. He's been there. Keep your players there. I know you might have to pay him a little bit more, but they probably definitely aren't staying with Brian Kelly or anybody else from the outside. I think you go with the inside hire here as Michigan, and I think that's why Alabama, you see them blowing up as a football team pretty much right now, or at least in the eyes of everybody. So I think that there's no smart hire other than Strom Moore right here, unless it's Jesse Minter. I just think he's going to the NFL with Harbaugh.
Yeah, and I think too. The thing is it's not like I think whenever you say, well, hire the inside guy, we're not really saying with Moore that it's just that he's the inside guy and he can keep stability. Moore has proven that he can win. I mean, he's proven that he won two huge games, Penn State and Ohio State. Those were enormous wins. And then that Maryland game in the middle, man, I'm telling you, you talk about. I don't think it was a trap game, really. I mean, like people will talk about. Well, you got Penn State, then you got Ohio State and Maryland in the middle. I don't think it was that. Maryland just came to play. They wanted to win that ball game, and so you've seen. I mean, Moore's proven. So I mean, I would be really surprised if they reach outside. And if if I were on the hiring committee, given what I've seen and given what I know is the nature of that Michigan program, I think that the players are going to seriously buy in with Moore because they already have. There's so much proof there. And I think that Moore fits that mold of saying, hey, we might not get a ton of 5 stars. We might not get, some, 3 or 4 superstars and spend $15 million on transfer kids. But by God, we can develop them because we know how to coach and we know how to draft, or how not draft, but recruit the correct players for our program. Um, my opinion, I think you got to go with Sharon Moore, and that's who I'm pulling for to get this because I want to see some continuity up there.
Yeah, with all that being said, everybody go down, like, comment, subscribe. We want to hear, who do you think Michigan should get to be their next head coach, and who do you think it will be? We'd really like to hear from y'all and interact with y'all on that. With that being said, though, we thank you for everything that y'all have done for us. We look forward to continuing bringing you Michigan videos and other videos based on college football and just football in general. It's what we're about here. And for all y'all out there, stay locked in.